The city lights glowed faintly in the distance as Jonathan walked through the quiet streets, feeling a strange mix of excitement and fear. He had received the message only hours ago, a summon from the most powerful ruler in the galaxy, the alien queen herself. A human had never been called to her court, yet here he was, carrying a small satchel and a heart full of curiosity. The shuttle that awaited him shimmered in the darkness, almost invisible, its sleek shape hovering silently. Jonathan stepped inside, feeling the cold metal beneath his fingers. The interior was quiet, filled with soft hums of alien energy. The door sealed behind him with a gentle hiss, and the ship lifted effortlessly into the night sky. As the shuttle rose, Jonathan tried to imagine what awaited him. He had studied alien politics and culture for years, yet nothing could have prepared him for the reality of standing before the alien queen. He looked out through the transparent wall and saw the planet slowly shrinking below him. A strange feeling gripped his chest, as if the universe itself was watching. When the shuttle entered the queen's domain, the air shimmered with strange colors, swirling mists and floating lights filled the sky. The palace appeared ahead, massive, beautiful, and terrifying. Its towers stretched high into the clouds, and strange creatures moved along the walls, graceful and silent. Jonathan's heart pounded as he realized the scale of what he was about to face. The doors of the palace opened before him, without a sound. A long corridor stretched out, lined with statues of unknown creatures and glowing symbols that pulsed with light. Jonathan walked slowly, each step echoing softly, feeling the weight of countless eyes watching him. Though no one seemed to move, he sensed the presence of the court, waiting, observing, judging. Finally, he arrived at the throne room, and the sight stole his breath. The room was enormous, its ceiling lost in shadows above, and thousands of beings stood silently in perfect formation. Their eyes glimmered in the strange light, all focused on him. The air felt heavy, and Jonathan realized how completely alone he was in the center of attention. Then, a soft murmur passed through the crowd, quiet but filled with tension. From the shadows stepped a small figure, a child, her skin shimmering with colors he had never seen. Her eyes were large, wise beyond her years, and she stared directly at him. As he looked into her gaze, a chill ran down his spine. He felt as if she could see everything about him, every thought, every fear. Suddenly, she spoke, her voice clear and calm. "Father," she said. The word echoed through the hall, and Jonathan froze. He could not believe what he had heard. The entire court stopped breathing, as if time itself had paused. Whispers rippled through the crowd, but none dared speak. The weight of the word hung in the air. Jonathan swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. He glanced at the child again, and saw no mischief in her eyes, only certainty, a quiet power that made his knees weak. The queen must have noticed, he thought, but she remained seated at her throne, watching silently, her expression unreadable. The tension was unbearable, yet Jonathan could not look away. He realized that something extraordinary was happening, something beyond his understanding. The child's choice of words had changed everything, and he felt the first stirrings of a strange connection forming. The court was alive with unspoken questions, all directed at him, and yet he felt strangely calm, as if the universe itself had chosen him for a purpose. The child took a step forward, her eyes never leaving his, and the murmurs grew louder. Though still quiet enough not to break the silence, Jonathan could feel the weight of their attention, the importance of this moment. Every instinct in him told him that nothing in his life would ever be the same. This was no ordinary summons. This was the beginning of a story that would stretch across worlds. As the last echoes of silence faded, Jonathan straightened his back and lifted his head, feeling both fear and determination. The child repeated the words softly, "Father," and this time, Jonathan understood. He was part of something much bigger than himself, something he could not yet name. The court remained frozen, waiting, watching, and the queen's eyes never left him. In that moment, Jonathan realized that every step he had taken in his life had led to this room, to this child, and to this impossible declaration. The air shimmered with anticipation, and Jonathan's heart raced. He knew that the journey ahead would be dangerous and uncertain, yet he could not turn back. Something had chosen him, and he must now answer. The palace seemed to hold its breath, and Jonathan took a deep breath of his own. He stepped closer to the child, and for the first time, he allowed himself to wonder what the word "father" truly meant in a world he had only begun to explore. The story was just beginning, and every eye in the court remained fixed on him, waiting for the next move. Jonathan's heart was still racing as he took a cautious step closer to the alien child. The court's eyes never left him, their silence heavier than any words. He could feel their judgment, their disbelief, yet the child seemed completely at ease. Her small hands moved gracefully, almost floating in the shimmering air, and her gaze remained fixed on him, calm but intense. She tilted her head slightly and studied him as if she were weighing his soul. Jonathan swallowed hard, unsure what to say or do. Every instinct in him told him to run, yet another voice, deeper and stranger, whispered in his mind, urging him to stay. The child's voice broke the silence again, soft but firm. "Do not fear, father," she said. The word sent a shiver down Jonathan's spine. He could not explain why, yet her voice felt familiar, comforting even in the midst of this alien court. Around them, the court shifted slightly, whispers rising like distant thunder, their alien features unreadable, yet Jonathan sensed fear, curiosity, and awe swirling together. The child, however, remained untouched by the tension, her presence calm, commanding, and strangely powerful. Jonathan forced his trembling hands to his sides and took another step forward. I do not understand," he managed to say, his voice barely more than a whisper. The child's eyes sparkled with a strange light, and she smiled faintly. "You will, father," she said, "but you must first see what the court cannot see." At her words, a subtle wave of energy passed through the room, making the air vibrate gently. The walls shimmered, the glowing symbols flickered, and for a brief moment, Jonathan felt as if he were standing in a dream. His mind raced, struggling to understand what was happening. Was it magic, technology, or something entirely different? The court seemed frozen in time, their expressions caught between awe and disbelief. Some whispered again, though their voices remained quiet. Jonathan caught a glance from the queen herself, who sat on her throne with an unreadable expression, watching, judging, and perhaps waiting. The child then stepped closer to Jonathan, small feet floating just above the palace floor, her presence commanding attention. "You are chosen, father," she said, her voice echoing softly, yet clearly throughout the hall, "chosen not by me, but by the stars, by what is coming, by what must be." Jonathan's head spun, the words strange yet heavy with meaning. He wanted to ask questions, to demand explanations, but he could not. His mind felt tangled in 1,000 possibilities. The court's whispers grew louder, though still hushed, their alien voices flowing like water, filled with curiosity, worry, and fear. Some bowed slightly, others looked away, but all eyes remained on the child and Jonathan. The queen's hand rested lightly on her staff, a symbol of power and control, and Jonathan realized how small and human he must look in that vast chamber. Yet the child did not see him as small. She reached out a tiny hand, and without touching him, Jonathan felt a warmth, a connection, a strange energy binding them together. "Do not doubt yourself," she said, "you are part of what is to come, and you will learn to guide, protect, and understand." The words seemed impossible, yet somehow they resonated in his very being. Jonathan felt a mixture of fear and awe. He could feel the weight of the court's attention, the gravity of the child's declaration, and the responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. He was human, fragile, and yet somehow, in her eyes, he was more than that. The child's gaze pierced through him, seeing not just his body, but his potential, his courage, and his heart. The court remained silent for what felt like an eternity, waiting, watching, as if they too felt the pull of this bond. Jonathan could sense tension building, questions that dared not be spoken, but hung in the air. The child's voice cut through the silence once more. "Father, the time has come for you to step forward, to face what is hidden, to understand why you are here." Jonathan nodded slowly, though fear gripped him like a vice. He took a step toward her, and the air seemed to shimmer around them. The child's small smile gave him courage, a fragile but burning light in the darkness of uncertainty. He realized that this was only the beginning, that his life would never be the same, and that the court's reaction, however silent, marked the start of something far greater than himself. And then, a hush fell over the chamber once more, heavier than before. The queen's eyes glinted, observing every movement, every expression, her silence more powerful than any words. Jonathan could feel the weight of history pressing down, and yet, within him, a spark of determination ignited. He was no longer just a human, he was part of a story that would stretch across worlds, guided by a mysterious child who had called him, Father. The court remained frozen, the tension in the air almost unbearable. Jonathan could feel every gaze pressing down on him, weighing his every movement. Every whisper seemed amplified in the vast chamber, the alien voices soft but sharp, questioning, judging. The child stood beside him, calm and unwavering, her eyes still fixed on him, as if daring the court to challenge her choice. Slowly, the queen rose from her throne, her movements deliberate and powerful. A hush fell over the hall, deeper than before, and even the whispers ceased. Jonathan's heart pounded as he tried to meet her gaze. The queen's expression was unreadable, a mixture of curiosity, caution, and authority. She lifted a hand, and the room waited, every being, every eye locked on the moment. "You have heard what the child has said." The queen's voice rang clear, deep and commanding, yet there was an edge of uncertainty. "This human calls himself your father. How can this be?" The advisors and nobles exchanged glances, their alien features tense, some leaning forward, some recoiling. Their murmurs grew, flowing like a river, full of speculation and doubt. Jonathan stood silently, unsure if he should speak, unsure if he could explain what even he did not understand. One of the eldest advisors, a tall figure with glowing patterns across his skin, stepped forward, bowing slightly. "Your Majesty," he said, "this human is not like others, but this declaration, it is unprecedented, impossible even. What authority does he hold in our world? Why does the child choose him?" The words echoed through the hall, filled with challenge and suspicion. Jonathan swallowed hard, feeling the weight of centuries of tradition pressing down on him. He glanced at the child, who smiled faintly, and he felt a strange courage surge inside. Something about her certainty made him feel that he was exactly where he needed to be. Another advisor, younger and less restrained, added, "Majesty, if this is true, then everything we know may change, our customs, our court, even the line of succession. All could be affected." His voice carried both fear and awe. The queen held up a hand, silencing the court once more. Her eyes met Jonathan's briefly, and he felt a strange connection, as if she was measuring him, testing him. "This is not a matter for anger or fear," she said finally, "it is a matter for understanding, for seeing what lies beyond our knowledge. This human stands before you not merely as a guest, but as a link, a choice made by forces we cannot yet explain." A ripple of murmurs passed through the court, some nodding slowly, others frowning. Still, doubt lingered in the air, thick and heavy. Jonathan felt the pressure, the weight of expectations and suspicion, yet the child's small hand reached for his, almost imperceptibly, and he felt a warmth, a reassurance that steadied him. Her presence was a shield, her certainty a sword, cutting through the tension. "Human," the queen continued, her voice softening slightly, "you will be tested, observed, and judged by our laws, our customs, and our people, but you are not here by chance, and the child has chosen wisely. Let the court witness your actions, your character, and the truth of what you are." Jonathan nodded slowly, feeling both fear and resolve. He could see the court's curiosity shifting, slowly, like ice melting under the sun. The child stepped forward again, her voice carrying across the hall, "Let them see, Father, let them understand what is already known in our hearts." Her words echoed with power, and the court's tension began to change, from disbelief to intrigue, from doubt to cautious hope. Jonathan realized that the child was not just an innocent bystander, but a force of change, guiding both him and the court. The advisors conferred quietly among themselves, some hesitant, some bold, debating the human's place in their world. Jonathan listened carefully, learning the rhythm of their politics, their expectations, their fears. He realized that he could not merely react. He had to act, to show them that he was worthy of the trust the child had placed in him. Finally, the queen spoke once more, her voice cutting through the whispers. "Let this be the beginning, not the end. Let him prove what he is, and let us learn what he can become. The child has chosen, and we will watch, but we will not destroy what may be necessary for our future." A collective breath seemed to release from the court, the tension easing slightly, but not disappearing. Every being remained alert, ready for the next move. Jonathan felt the weight of their scrutiny, yet he also felt a strange strength, born from the child's unwavering belief. He knew that this was just the start, that he would face tests, challenges, and moments of doubt, yet he also knew that he could not fail. The court may judge him, the queen may test him, but the child had chosen him, and that choice carried power beyond comprehension. And in that silent, tense hall, Jonathan took a deep breath, standing taller than before. The court's judgment was not yet complete, but he was ready to meet it. The child's small hand lingered near his, a promise, a guide, a bond that would not be broken. He had entered an alien world, uncertain and dangerous, and yet, in that moment, he felt that he belonged. The court waited, the queen watched, and Jonathan knew that the path ahead would be full of challenges, but also full of possibilities. This was his chance to prove himself, to understand, and to become more than he had ever imagined. The story was far from over, and every eye in the court remained fixed on him, awaiting the next step. The queen rose fully to her height, her presence filling the enormous chamber. Jonathan felt the air shift, heavier now, charged with power and authority. She stepped down from her throne, her robes flowing like liquid light, and the court fell completely silent, waiting, watching, every eye fixed on her. Jonathan's heart pounded, unsure whether to bow or stand tall. He did both in his own way, feeling small yet determined. The queen's gaze swept the room slowly, lingering on Jonathan, the child, and then across the court. Her eyes seemed to see everything, every intention, every fear, every hope. She stopped, staring at Jonathan with an intensity that made him shiver. "You have all witnessed what has occurred," the queen's voice rang out, calm but commanding. "This child has called a human her father, and you all are shocked, puzzled, and afraid. But you must understand that what we see is only a part of what is. The stars, the universe, and the threads of destiny often choose in ways beyond our comprehension." Jonathan swallowed hard, feeling both fear and awe. He sensed that the queen's words were more than explanation. They were a test, a challenge, a prophecy. Some advisors shifted nervously, whispering among themselves, questioning, judging, trying to make sense of this impossible moment. Yet the queen held up a hand, and silence returned, more complete than before. "This human stands before you not only as a visitor, but as a key to what is coming," she continued. "His presence is not random, and his connection to the child is not coincidence. We cannot explain fully why, but it is clear that he has been chosen, by forces greater than our court, greater than our knowledge." Jonathan felt his mind whirl with questions. What forces? Why him? How could a human, fragile and alone, be chosen in this vast alien world? Yet when he looked at the child, her calm certainty steadied him. He realized that whatever the queen said was true. Something extraordinary had begun. The queen turned slowly to the advisors, her voice sharper now. "I know this is hard to accept. Some of you see danger, some see chaos, but you must remember that the child speaks truth, and truth cannot be denied. This human will be tested, observed, and guided, and it is our duty to watch carefully, to support where necessary, and to learn what we can from this bond." A ripple of tension passed through the court, some nodding reluctantly, others frowning. The advisors murmured, weighing the queen's words, calculating what this declaration could mean for their customs, their traditions, their power. Jonathan sensed that every one of them was measuring him, gauging his worth, yet he felt strangely unshaken. The queen turned back to him, her gaze softer now. "Human, you may not understand now, but you are part of something far greater than yourself. The child has chosen you for reasons that will be revealed, but you must prove your courage, your wisdom, and your loyalty. The path ahead will be difficult, yet your choices here will echo across worlds." Jonathan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. He felt the weight of responsibility, heavier than any he had ever known, yet he also felt a strange exhilaration, as if his ordinary human life had prepared him for this extraordinary moment. The child reached out her small hand again, brushing his arm, and he felt strength, reassurance, and a connection that grounded him. The queen lifted her staff slightly, and the room shimmered with light, an energy that seemed to bind everyone in the chamber. Let this moment mark the beginning, not the end. Let the human and the child demonstrate the truth of their bond, and let us witness what is meant to be. Any who act with malice or doubt will find their intentions tested, and those who embrace understanding will find wisdom. Jonathan felt a chill run down his spine, the words heavy with meaning. He realized that the court's judgment was ongoing, yet the queen's response had shifted the balance, from fear and doubt to curiosity and careful observation. Every whisper, every glance, every murmur of movement seemed filled with possibility. The child smiled faintly, her gaze unwavering, and Jonathan felt the last traces of fear dissolve. He knew that the queen's response had not only protected him but had given him a chance, a moment to prove himself. He also understood that the challenges ahead would be unlike anything he had faced on Earth. The court remained tense, the advisors whispering, but slowly, the air began to change. Some leaned forward with interest, others relaxed their rigid posture, yet all watched Jonathan and the child. The queen returned to her throne, her eyes never leaving him, a quiet promise that this story was far from over. Jonathan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of expectation and the stirrings of hope. He looked at the child, and she nodded, small but confident, as if saying, "We are ready." In that moment, he understood that this was only the beginning, and that together they would face what lay ahead, whatever the court, the universe, or destiny had planned. Jonathan stood in the center of the grand hall, the alien court still watching him with cautious eyes. The child beside him stepped forward, her small hand resting lightly on his arm, and he felt the warmth of her confidence. Her voice carried softly, yet every ear in the chamber seemed to hear, "Father, I chose you because you are human, because you see what others cannot, and because your heart is brave enough to face what is coming." The word sent a ripple through Jonathan's mind. He realized that the child's choice was not random, it was deliberate, purposeful, and filled with meaning beyond his understanding. The court murmured, whispers rising and falling like waves, some expressing doubt, some awe, and others fear, yet none dared challenge her, for the queen's gaze remained fixed and commanding, her expression serious, yet approving. Jonathan took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly. "I do not know why you chose me," he said carefully. "I am only human, and I have no power like yours, or knowledge of your world, or your ways." The child smiled faintly, tilting her head. "That is exactly why I chose you," she said, "because humans are different, because your courage and compassion are rare, and because you can make choices that others would not dare." The queen leaned forward on her throne, her eyes bright with interest. "Indeed," she said, "this human represents a new path, a bridge between worlds, and a hope for understanding that has never existed before. What he brings is not strength alone, but perspective, courage, and the potential to guide what is to come. The child has seen what we cannot see, and we must trust her judgment." Jonathan's chest swelled with both pride and fear. He understood that being called "father" was not just a title, it was a responsibility, a bond, and a challenge that he had to accept. The court seemed to shift around him, the tension softening as their curiosity and hope grew. He realized that he was no longer just an observer, he was part of this alien world, part of a story far greater than himself. The child stepped closer to him, her eyes shining. "Father, there is much to learn, many dangers to face, and many secrets to uncover. But together, we can protect what must be protected, and guide those who will follow. You must trust yourself, and trust me." Jonathan nodded, feeling the weight of her words, and yet also the spark of courage they gave him. He knew that this moment marked the start of something extraordinary. The queen rose once more, her robes flowing like liquid light, and the court fell silent, waiting. "Let it be known," she said, "that this human is accepted as part of our world, not by birth, but by choice, by the child's declaration, and by the wisdom she carries. He will share in our responsibilities, learn our ways, and guide us through what is yet to come. Let none doubt the power of connection, and the importance of understanding." A ripple of awe passed through the court, some whispering, others bowing slightly, yet all eyes remained on Jonathan and the child, witnessing the beginning of a bond that could change everything. Jonathan felt a strange sense of belonging, a feeling he had never known on Earth. He was human, yes, but now he was more. He was a part of this alien story, chosen for reasons beyond his comprehension. The child smiled again, small but radiant. "Come, Father," she said, "there is much to show you, much to teach, and much to protect. The court will watch, but we must begin. The future is not yet written, and it will depend on our choices." Jonathan took a step forward, then another, feeling the weight of destiny on his shoulders, yet with her hand in his, he also felt hope, courage, and a strange sense of certainty. As they walked through the vast halls, the palace seemed alive with possibilities. The lights shimmered, the symbols pulsed, and Jonathan realized that he was no longer a visitor, but a participant, an actor in a story that spanned worlds and generations. The queen watched silently from her throne, and the court observed with fascination and cautious respect. Jonathan felt their eyes, yet he no longer feared them, he felt ready. The child whispered to him, "Father, this is only the beginning, many challenges await, many mysteries to uncover, but together, we will face them. You are human, yet you are chosen, and that is why you can succeed where others cannot." Jonathan nodded, understanding finally that being father was more than a word, it was a duty, a bond, and a journey into a future that neither human nor alien could have imagined alone. And as they moved forward into the unknown corridors of the palace, the court behind them silent but attentive, Jonathan felt the first spark of a new life, a life filled with adventure, purpose, and connection. He had become part of something extraordinary, guided by a mysterious child, accepted by a queen, and watched by an entire alien court. The story of humanity in this vast universe had truly begun.